Hi everybody, I want to take just a second and welcome all of y'all today. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to be talking about Uncle Sam's Schools. So before we get to that, I want to start off telling you a little bit about myself. So I was actually homeschooled all of my life up until I started college. So K through 12, I was homeschooled. And I remember when I was young, I was about 5 or 6, and I had my first conversation with my mom about normal kids who went to real school. And soon after this, I realized that there are only a very few amount of people who were homeschooled in the grand scheme of things, and most of my friends went to public school. And then after looking into this a little bit more just as a kid and talking to them, I realized that while my parents bought my books and paid for my curriculums, their schooling was free. And I thought this was just the coolest thing because I would hear my mom talk about how expensive school was, whereas their school was absolutely free. And so this led me to learning a lot about the effects and the importance of American public schools and government funding for them. So this leads me to my first point, is that government funding for schools is needed to maintain our society as we have it today. So in order to have free public education, government funding is needed, as we said. So public education is more expensive today than it ever has been. From 1980 to 2014, the number of U.S. public schools students increased only 23%, so increased less than a quarter, but the total expenditures have increased more than twice that. So school is radically expensive today than it used to be. And public education cannot feasibly be funded without government intervention. There's just simply no other way to do it. And also, in order to have a thriving society, public education options are needed. Education is essential to raising a modern workforce. The more research I did into this, the more people I talked to, and the more sources I got, I realized that without an education, our workforce would look very differently. And this brings me to also that education is essential to equipping future leaders. I once heard a man say that knowledge is power. So when we're educating our young people, we're empowering them to become leaders. And this does bring me to our next point, that in order to maintain modern society, government funding is needed. So government funding for schools, it maintains our modern education system. It sustains it. And so the American education system would not be available to everyone without government funding. Many people cannot afford to pay for their children's education, just as a lot of my friends' parents could not afford to pay for their kids' education. And many people cannot also afford to pay for their own education. This goes up to higher education. So past K through 12, people need government funding, government grants, colleges need government money in order for people to go beyond K through 12 and get a degree. So this leads me to the education system looks very negatively different without government funding. This is what I've found throughout all of my research. So a significant number of individuals would not be able to finish their educations without that little boost of government dollars. And a significant number of individuals would not have the jobs they did today without that education. And if you didn't know this, 9 out of 10 jobs in the last year have gone to people with a college degree. It is becoming harder and harder to get a job without a degree in our higher education system, which means that it's even more needed for us to have these government dollars. And that does bring me to the conclusion of today's speech, just overall discussing Uncle Sam's Schools and the government dollars needed for them. Today we live in such a government subsidized culture, and one of the most significant things our government funds is our education. And this affects so many individuals and overall benefits our society as a whole. So thank you all so much for being here. My name is Jonathan once again, and it has been great presenting.